if you asked most people, what do you think is the one thing that Jesus says? Okay, if you're interested in making a case for Christianity, if you're interested in making a defense for Christianity, if you're interested in doing something that will convince people that I am who you know me to be, who I said I was, I think most of us would say, well, what was it that Jesus said we should say? Because he did give us complete instructions, and these instructions were just to his disciples. If you read John's gospel, you'll see that he's preaching to the masses, preaching to them, and then at some point he's done talking to the public, and now he's only going to a very, very long speech. He's going to give to just his disciples because he's about to go to the cross. So he shifts from public proclamation to discipleship of his own disciples because they're about to be without him. And he tells them in that speech, in that long discussion, about what it is they could do or say that would convince people that what God is doing here is true, and Jesus is who he said he was. And the thing that he says will convince people is unity. He says, Father, let them be unified as you and I are unified. Because if they are unified, then the world will know that I am who I said I was. So if we're looking for the surest, at least the most direct stated approach that Jesus of Nazareth had for his own disciples to demonstrate to the world that Christianity is true, he would say it's going to be the unity of the church. And sadly, what we see is that we will now. How do you get to that unity? Well, you have to. This is the hardest part. Well, first of all, our human nature is so fallen that most of the time that's almost impossible. We choose disunity over unity. We choose the self over others. And so whatever I believe is, we can be unified as long as you agree with me. But if you don't, we're not going to be unified. Okay. So that's the biggest problem. And then the thing would be, well, if we could just decide, look, if there were just some essentials that we would say, yeah, this is what is required, but everything else is just fun to talk about. And let's not divide over the non-essentials. Well, then the problem is going to be is that we'll be arguing over about what should be essential in the first place. So it seems like our nature is such that we are destined for this struggle, which is why I think like Jesus doesn't have to make a case for us to eat. We want to eat. He doesn't say you ought to sleep, but we want to sleep. But he makes a case for the things that he knows we don't do. That he knows what we struggle with. If he's talking about you guys should be X, it's because he knows we're not X. And most of the time we are anti-X. So when he tells us that we ought to be unified, it's because he knows. Like he knows this is not coming naturally. It's not going to. The natural man is so deeply fallen that we incline toward disunity. So I think that part of the problem is that when we talk about these things, and I'll tell you what's really amplified this, Caleb, and you're going to have to deal with it in your generation because you are a digital native. I am not a digital native. I'm a digital immigrant. I didn't start off with the smartphone in my hand. I did a lot of my career as an undercover, working undercover, and we didn't even have a flip phone yet. Okay. I had a pager and a bag of quarters. Okay. If somebody called me, like an informant called me, they would page me and I'd have to pull over, working undercover in my undercover car and hit a payphone to call the informant back because I just didn't have cell phones. Well, the cell phone is changing the degree to which we are willing to be disassociate from each other. And let's face it, it's really hard. If you're living with your brother, it's really hard to continually mistreat him, and to just because you're living with him, and he's right in the next room, and he knows everything about you, and you know everything about him. But it's easy to be disassociated from somebody who's across the world, and social media has made it so that we can anonymously scream at each other in a way that we would never do if we knew that person personally. We can scream at people about their ideas and not even give a lick about the person at all because we don't know that person. And they're probably not even using their real name. They're using an icon on their social media and a screen name. It's not even them. We have no idea. If everyone on social media had to put their real pictures with their real home address and their real family members, the discourse would be entirely different. But this increase in anonymity has now made it so that if you think we were not unified before, Oh, it's going to be a lot worse because we're not even holding each other accountable because we don't know the person we're screaming at. So I think that once we're 2 or 3 generations into that level of discourse, I just wonder what that'll mean. Where will we be? I think what'll happen is, this is my fear. So Jesus talks about how out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. We also know that words eventually become actions. So the process seems to be, I'm thinking about it, then I'm speaking about it, and then ultimately I'm doing it. And that's the trajectory. So here's what I see. It used to be we would think about this level of vitriol, but we would never say it. It was not, there was polite conversation. You would never say that publicly. We were comfortable thinking these negative things, but we weren't comfortable speaking them. And we certainly weren't going to do anything. Well, now we're very comfortable screaming. And now I'm starting to see that we're also comfortable shooting the person who we don't agree with. And that's going to happen more and more because we're seeing the trajectory of thoughts to, and we've taken the gatekeeper off of our words. So what we're not doing anymore is saying, hey, you shouldn't say that. Instead, we're giving you a platform to say it with even more explicatives and vitriol. Well, are you surprised then that at some point someone's going to act? I'm not. We've taken the lid off. So I think that's something you guys going to have to think about in your generation. Like how do we make a conscious decision to refrain from engaging people anonymously and realize that that public platform, like here we are doing this, right? You got a podcast. I bet you'd like more people to listen to it, not less. I get it. I mean, I feel the same way. But how do we at some point say, okay, we have to resist the temptation? I'll tell you this. I will not tolerate any incivil discourse on any platform that I'm on social media. If I see anyone move to a personal attack, I block them out. Now that is shrinking my platform. It has definitely inhibited the growth of the platform. But if you come on one of my platforms and make a comment, you're probably not going to be in a place where someone's going to personally attack you, especially with some anonymous name. I'm just not going to allow it because I feel like we have to consciously address this issue. And there needs to be some place where you can go and learn, say your piece, and not be attacked. And so that's kind of the direction we're heading in.